My husband called me while I was visiting a high school reunion. Funny thing, he said. Your old friend just tried to pay for gas using your card. I smiled. Which one? He replied, the one I never knew you had. I stepped outside and saw a familiar car parked across the street. I wasn't even sure why I decided to come to the reunion. It had been 15 years since I left Savannah, and I hadn't looked back much. Life had a way of pulling me forward. Marriage, work, 2 kids, a house in the suburbs. I had settled into the kind of life I once thought was boring, but now felt like comfort, stability. But when the invitation arrived in the mail, something about it tugged at me. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe I just wanted to see how everyone had turned out. So I booked a flight, told my husband Luke it was just a quick weekend trip, and here I was, standing in a hotel ballroom filled with faces that were once my whole world, but now felt like distant memories. The music was a little too loud. People were hugging, laughing, drinking. The air smelled of cheap champagne and cologne. I smiled and nodded through conversations, but my mind was somewhere else. Then my phone buzzed in my purse. Luke calling. I stepped away from the crowd, pressing the phone to my ear. Hey, what's up? There was a pause. Then his voice, calm but with an edge to it. Funny thing, he said. Your old friend just tried to pay for gas using your card. I frowned. Which one? Another pause. A beat too long. Then, lower this time. The one I never knew you had. My stomach twisted. What? I said, my voice quieter now. Luke exhaled. I could hear the faint sounds of a gas station in the background. Cars, a beeping register, the hum of fluorescent lights. I'm at the BP down the street from the house, he said. Some guy tried to use a card with your name on it. Brown hair, early 40s, kinda wiry. Looked at me like he knew me, then bolted when I started asking questions. I gripped my phone tighter. Did you see the name on the card? Yeah. His voice was unreadable. Amanda Caldwell. A rush of cold ran through me. That was my maiden name. I hadn't used that name in over a decade. And there was only one person in the world who would have a credit card with that name on it. I turned slowly toward the entrance of the hotel, a sinking feeling growing in my gut. Then I saw it, parked across the street, half hidden in the glow of a street lamp. A black 1998 Pontiac Firebird. My chest tightened. I hadn't seen that car in over 15 years. But I knew exactly who was behind the wheel. Caleb Parker had been everything I wasn't supposed to want. A high school dropout. A troublemaker. The kind of guy who got into fights and barely scraped by, but had this effortless charm that made people overlook it. I had fallen for him hard. We were inseparable. Late-night drives, stolen kisses, whispered promises. We thought we were invincible, that nothing could touch us. But then, one night, everything changed. It was supposed to be a regular night. Just the two of us, driving out past the marsh, drinking cheap beer under the stars. But then Caleb got a call. I never knew who was on the other end. All I remember was the look on his face. Tight, serious. The way his hands clenched the steering wheel. He told me to go home. I didn't listen. I followed him. And what I saw that night, I never spoke about it again. I buried it. I built a whole new life over it. And I thought I had left it behind. Until now. I swallowed hard, gripping my phone. Luke, I said carefully. Where is he now? He drove off as soon as I asked about the card. My pulse thudded in my ears. Did he say anything else? There was a long pause. Then Luke said, yeah, he told me. Tell Amanda I'm cashing in. I felt like the ground had shifted under me. Luke's voice was firm now. Mandy, who is this guy? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Across the street, the Firebird's engine rumbled. It hadn't moved. I exhaled. I have to go. I hung up before Luke could ask anything else. And then, before I could talk myself out of it, before the part of me that was older, wiser, and should have known better could stop me, I crossed the street. The window of the Firebird rolled down before I even reached it. And there he was. Caleb. He looked older, leaner. His jaw was sharper, his eyes a little more hollow. But the smirk? That was the same. Hey, Mandy. I crossed my arms. What the HLL are you doing here? He tilted his head. Long time, no see. That how you greet an old friend? You stole my credit card. His smirk widened. Didn't steal it. You gave it to me. I opened my mouth, then stopped. Because he was right. 15 years ago, before I left, I had given him a credit card in my name. Just in case. And I never canceled it. I don't know why. Maybe a part of me had always wondered if he'd ever use it. And now, after all this time, he had. Caleb drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. Want to take a drive? I should have said no. I should have walked back inside and pretended I never saw him. But I didn't. I opened the door and got in. We were parked at the edge of the marsh, the air thick with the smell of salt and damp earth. Neither of us had spoken in a while. Finally, I turned to him. What do you want, Caleb? He exhaled slowly. I need your help. I let out a short, bitter laugh. That's rich. I'm serious. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, and handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was a birth certificate. My eyes scanned it quickly. Then they stopped. Mother's name, Amanda Caldwell. Father's name, Caleb Parker. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook. What the HLL is this? Caleb's jaw tightened. She's 13, Mandy. The world tilted. I had a daughter. And I had never known. I looked at him, voice barely above a whisper. Why are you telling me this now? His eyes were unreadable. Because she's missing. I stared at the birth certificate in my hands, my fingers gripping the edges so tightly they trembled. Caleb watched me, silent. She's 13, he said again, like he needed to remind me. Like I hadn't just had my entire world yanked out from under me. I couldn't speak. My brain refused to process it. Because this couldn't be real. It wasn't possible. I pressed my palm against my forehead, feeling dizzy. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. I don't understand. Caleb shifted in his seat. You were pregnant when you left, Mandy. I shook my head, my breath unsteady. No, I wasn't. I would have known. I stopped. Because a memory hit me like a slap. 15 years ago, the months after I left Savannah. I'd been sick for weeks. Brushed it off as stress. Missed a few periods, but blamed it on the move, the exhaustion of starting college in a new city. And then, one day, they just came back. At least I thought they did. But what if? A wave of nausea rolled through me. I forced myself to look at him. You're saying I had a baby? And I what? Just didn't notice? Caleb's face was unreadable. You lost the baby, Mandy. Before you even knew. My heart stopped. I felt cold, lightheaded. I tried to breathe, but it felt like I was suffocating. This wasn't real. This wasn't my life. I turned to him, my voice barely above a whisper. Then how do I have a daughter? Caleb swallowed, gripping the steering wheel. He looked straight ahead, like he couldn't meet my eyes. Because she wasn't yours, he said finally. The words didn't make sense. I blinked. What? He exhaled slowly, his knuckles white. She was my sister's. I stared at him. What are you talking about? You don't have a sister. He let out a bitter laugh. Not anymore. The air in the car felt heavy, thick with something I didn't understand yet. Caleb finally turned to face me. And when he did, there was something in his expression I'd never seen before. Regret. Guilt. Fear. Her name is Callie, he said. She's my niece. My sister. Samantha. She had her right before she died. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Samantha. I barely remembered her. She'd been older than us, already out of school when Caleb and I had started dating. I had seen her maybe 3 times in my life. And now Caleb was telling me she was dead? What happened to her? I asked, my voice barely audible. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it with shaking fingers. For a moment, he just stared at the smoke curling in the air. Then, finally, he spoke. She was murdered. A chill ran down my spine. I swallowed. How? Caleb's jaw tightened. She got mixed up with the wrong people. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I stared at him. What kind of people, Caleb? He hesitated. Then he turned to me, his eyes dark. The kind that don't forget. The car felt suddenly too small, too suffocating. I reached for the door handle, needing air, needing space. But Caleb grabbed my wrist before I could move. His grip wasn't rough, but it was firm. Mandy, he said, his voice low. Please. I looked at him, and for the first time in over a decade, I saw it. The same desperation I had seen in his eyes that night, all those years ago. The night that changed everything. The night I had spent 15 years trying to forget. My voice was unsteady. Why are you really here, Caleb? He exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. I told you. Callie's missing. Something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. And I pressed. His jaw clenched. And I think the same people who led my sister took her. The air left my lungs. I shook my head. No. Caleb, that doesn't make sense. He ran a hand through his hair. It does if you know who they are. I didn't ask. Because deep down, I already knew. I had spent the last 15 years trying to pretend that night never happened. Trying to believe that if I didn't say the name, it wouldn't exist anymore. But now, sitting in that car, I knew it had never gone away. Neither had he. Caleb's voice was quiet. I need you to come with me, Mandy. I stiffened. He reached into his jacket again and pulled out something small. A photo. I hesitated before taking it. It was a school picture. A young girl. Dark curls. Light brown eyes. She looked so much like Caleb. But there was something else, too. Something familiar. Something that made my chest ache. She looks like me, I whispered. Caleb nodded. Then, softer. She's all I have left. I stared at the photo, my heart pounding. 15 years. 15 years of pretending I had left all of this behind. 15 years of convincing myself that none of it would ever come back to me. But now it had. And I had no idea how to escape it. I looked up at Caleb, my fingers tightening around the picture. And then, in a voice I barely recognized as my own, I asked, where do we start? Caleb exhaled, rubbing his thumb along the edge of the steering wheel. We start with the last place she was seen. I swallowed, glancing at the photo of Callie again. There was something haunting about the way her eyes stared back at me, full of life, full of innocence. And now she was gone. I clenched my jaw. Where? Caleb hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he muttered, Atlanta. I blinked. Atlanta? What the HLL was she doing in Atlanta? His expression darkened. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I shook my head, trying to make sense of it. She's 13, Caleb. What the HLL would a kid be doing in Atlanta by herself? Caleb inhaled deeply, like he was bracing himself for what he was about to say. She wasn't by herself. The words sent a chill up my spine. I stared at him. Then who was she with? His fingers tightened around the gear shift. He didn't look at me when he said it. Someone I thought was dead. A strange silence filled the car. A silence thick with things unspoken, things I wasn't sure I wanted to hear. My stomach twisted. Caleb, I said carefully. Who? He finally turned his head, his dark eyes locking onto mine. And when he said the name, my blood ran cold. Because I knew it. I had spent the last 15 years trying to forget it. And now it was back. Back to pull me under. Caleb's voice was quiet, but it hit me like a gunshot. James Holloway. I felt my breath catch. No, that wasn't possible. James Holloway was dead. Wasn't he? The memories hit me like a freight train. I had only seen James Holloway a handful of times back then, but that had been enough. Enough to know what kind of man he was. He wasn't like the other guys Caleb ran with. Reckless kids, troublemakers, the ones who stole cars for joyrides or got into fights at bars. James was different. Older, smarter, colder. The kind of man who didn't just break the law, he owned it. And he had been there that night. The night that changed everything. The night that made me run. I squeezed my eyes shut. That's not possible. Caleb didn't say anything. I opened my eyes, looking at him desperately. James is dead, Caleb. His jaw tightened. That's what I thought too. I shook my head. No. We both saw. I know what we saw, he cut in, his voice sharp. We stared at each other, the weight of the past pressing down between us like a third person in the car. Then Caleb exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. Look, I wouldn't have come to you if I wasn't sure. I let out a hollow laugh. You think I believe that? His eyes flashed. Mandy. I shook my head, my hands trembling in my lap. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. It was supposed to be over. It was supposed to be dead. And yet, here I was, sitting in a car with Caleb Parker, talking about a man who should have been buried a long time ago. And the worst part? A 13-year-old girl was caught in the middle of it. A girl with my last name. I asked in a shaky breath. Okay. Caleb blinked. Okay. I nodded, gripping the photo tighter. Let's go. He studied me for a second, as if waiting for me to take it back. When I didn't, he nodded once. Then he put the car in gear. And we drove. The night blurred past us in streaks of highway lights and memories I didn't want to remember. Caleb didn't talk much as he drove. Neither did I. It wasn't until we were nearly an hour outside Savannah that I finally spoke. What aren't you telling me? Caleb didn't look away from the road. What do you mean? I frowned. You tracked me down after 15 years. Stole my credit card. Told my husband some cryptic message about cashing in. Then dragged me into your car and dropped James Holloway's name like a goddamn beam shell. I turned to face him fully. So what else aren't you telling me? Caleb's grip tightened on the wheel. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he muttered, Callie called me. I stiffened. What? His throat bobbed. A week ago, before she disappeared. My pulse pounded in my ears. And his fingers drummed against the wheel. She said she was in trouble. I swallowed hard. What kind of trouble? He hesitated. She didn't say. I narrowed my eyes. Bullshit. He shot me a look. I stared back, unblinking. She told you more than that, Caleb. And if I'm going to be involved in this, I need to know everything. His jaw worked for a moment. Then, finally, he sighed. She said someone was watching her. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. She was scared, Mandy. Really scared. My mouth was dry. Did she say who? His throat tightened. No, but she said something else. I waited. He exhaled. She said, he knows about you. My breath caught. Caleb's voice was quiet now. She meant you, Mandy. A slow, creeping dread settled in my chest. Because if Callie had said that, if she had been taken by the same people who had once nearly destroyed us, then this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me, too. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if I had made a terrible mistake by getting in this car. The car felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in. I stared at Caleb, my pulse hammering in my ears. She said he knows about me? My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. Caleb nodded, his expression grim. Yeah. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the seat to steady myself. This wasn't just about Callie. This was about me. About the past I had buried. And the people I had tried so damn hard to forget. I turned away, looking out the window at the endless stretch of highway, the dark silhouettes of trees blurring past. Why now? I muttered. Why? After all these years, would he come after me now? Caleb hesitated. Too long. I whipped my head back toward him. What the HLL aren't you telling me? His jaw clenched. He was gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Then, finally, he sighed. I think Callie found something. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. What do you mean, found something? Caleb's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't know exactly, but whatever it was, it scared the HLL out of her. I stared at him. And you didn't think to tell me this before we started driving to Atlanta? He glanced at me, his eyes dark. Would you have come if I did? I opened my mouth, closed it. Damn him. Damn him for knowing me better than I wanted him to. I let out a slow breath, pressing my fingers to my temples. Okay, I said, my voice tight. Okay, start from the beginning. What do you know? Caleb exhaled through his nose, his grip on the wheel loosening just slightly. A week ago, he started. Callie calls me in the middle of the night. She's whispering, freaking out, says she thinks someone's following her. At first, I figure she's just being paranoid. She's a kid, right? Kids freak themselves out all the time. I frowned. But he tapped his fingers against the wheel. But then she says she found something. Something bad. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What was it? I don't know. His jaw tightened. She wouldn't tell me over the phone. Just kept saying, Uncle Caleb, I messed up. I really messed up. My stomach turned. I could practically hear it. The fear in her voice. The panic. She said she was in Atlanta? I asked. He shook his head. She didn't say where she was. But the call was coming from a burner phone. A prepaid number. My frown deepened. And you think James Holloway has her? Caleb hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah, I do. I exhaled sharply, leaning back against the seat. This was bad. This was really bad. James Holloway wasn't the kind of man you went looking for. And if Callie had gotten mixed up with him, even accidentally, I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I didn't know this girl. I had never met her. But she was Caleb's family. And that meant she was mine, too. Whether I wanted her to be or not. I glanced at Caleb. His profile was tense, his shoulders stiff as he stared at the road ahead. Something about it pulled at me. He had always been like this, carrying the weight of the world on his back, never asking for help. And yet, here he was, asking me. Caleb, I said softly. He didn't look at me. Yeah. What if we're too late? His fingers twitched on the wheel. Then, quietly, we're not. I wasn't sure if he was saying it for me or for himself. Maybe both. 2 hours later, we were on the outskirts of Atlanta, just past midnight. Caleb pulled into a gas station off the highway, parking near the pumps. Stay here, he muttered, already reaching for the door handle. I scoffed. Like HLL. He shot me a look. Mandy. I pushed open my door and stepped out. You dragged me into this, Caleb. You don't get to bench me now. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Just stay close, okay? I rolled my eyes. Obviously, the gas station was mostly empty, except for a tired-looking cashier inside and a trucker refueling at the far end of the lot. Caleb walked straight to the payphone by the wall, fishing something out of his pocket. A crumpled piece of paper. I peered over his shoulder. What is that? He held it up. Callie's last known number. I frowned. You're calling her now? He nodded, then dropped a few coins into the payphone and punched in the numbers. The line rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then, click. Caleb stiffened. A voice came through the receiver. But it wasn't Callie. It was a man. And I recognized the voice instantly. I felt the blood drain from my face. Caleb's grip on the phone tightened. The man on the other end chuckled. A slow, lazy sound. Caleb Parker, he drawled. Long time, no see. I barely breathed. James Holloway. Alive. Caleb didn't say anything for a moment. His knuckles turned white around the receiver. Then, quietly, he said, Where is she? James made a tisk sound. Now. No need to rush, kid. You know I always like to take my time. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Caleb's voice dropped to something lethal. If you hurt her, oh, come on. James interrupted, sighing. Do I look like the kind of man who hurts children? Caleb's jaw flexed. I felt sick. James let out another chuckle. You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about you too. And now here you are, calling me. His voice dropped to something more amused. And you brought Mandy with you. That's cute. My breath caught. Caleb's entire body tensed. If you touch her, James ignored him. Did you ever tell her, Parker? Caleb froze. I looked between them, my heart pounding. Tell me what? I demanded. James made a pleased humming sound. Guess not. Caleb's hand clenched around the receiver. James kept going like he hadn't heard him. You know, Mandy, I almost feel bad for you. You really have no idea, do you? About what? I snapped. The line went quiet. Then James spoke again, his voice smooth and dangerous. About why Caleb really came back for you. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. I turned to Caleb, my pulse in my throat. What is he talking about? Caleb didn't answer. His grip on the phone tightened. James chuckled. Go on, Parker. Tell her what you did. Caleb's throat worked, but he didn't say a word. And in that moment, I knew. There was something he hadn't told me. Something big. Something that changed everything. And I wasn't sure I wanted to hear it. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as I turned to Caleb. His jaw was tight, his fingers still wrapped around the phone, but he wouldn't look at me. James's voice came through the receiver again, smooth as ever. Oh, she's gonna be pissed when she finds out, Parker. But don't worry. I'll be here to pick up the pieces when she's done tearing you apart. I snatched the phone from Caleb's hand before he could react. What the HLL are you talking about, James? I snapped. James hummed, like he was enjoying this. You really don't know, do you? I clenched my teeth. Know what? Another pause. Then, Caleb's the reason I'm still alive. My stomach dropped. I turned to Caleb sharply. What? His expression didn't change. James laughed. Oh, you thought you two got rid of me that night, didn't you? You thought it was over. But Caleb, your knight in shining armor, he made a little deal. My hands went clammy around the receiver. What? Deal? James sighed dramatically. Come on, Mandy. You're a smart girl. You really think I stayed buried for 15 years just because? I barely breathed. James continued. Caleb made sure I stayed hidden. Made sure no one ever found me. And in return, I could feel my body trembling. In return, I let him keep you. The world tilted. I couldn't speak. James chuckled. Guess he never told you that part, huh? I turned back to Caleb, my mind spinning. Tell me he's lying. Caleb's throat bobbed. Mandy, tell me he's lying. Caleb ran a hand down his face, exhaling sharply. I had to, Mandy. You don't understand. I let out a hollow laugh. Oh, I understand perfectly. You cut a deal with him, the man who ruined our lives. And for what? My voice cracked. To protect me? Or to protect yourself? Caleb looked like I had slapped him. I swallowed, feeling the weight of it settle in my chest. For 15 years, I had lived my life thinking James Holloway was gone. And all this time, Caleb had been keeping his secret. James sighed on the other end of the line. Now, as much fun as this has been, let's talk business. I felt cold. What do you want? He chuckled. Straight to the point. I always liked that about you, Mandy. I gritted my teeth. James. He hummed. I want my deal back. I frowned. What? I let Caleb and his little secret arrangement keep me in the dark for 15 years. But now, I think it's time for me to come back into the light. My stomach twisted. James's voice dropped. So, here's what we're going to do. You and Caleb are going to walk away. You're going to forget Callie ever existed. And in return, I won't make your lives a living HLL. My grip on the phone tightened. You want us to just leave her? Bingo. I asked Ked in a sharp breath. Then I smiled. And James Holloway didn't know it yet, but he had just lost. I hung up the phone. Caleb stared at me. Mandy, what are you? I turned to him, my mind already working 100 miles an hour. We're not leaving her. Caleb frowned. Of course not. But James, I shook my head. No, we're not playing by his rules anymore. Caleb hesitated. What are you thinking? I took a deep breath. James doesn't want revenge. He wants power. He wants his old life back. That means he needs something from us. Caleb's brow furrowed. What? I exhaled. His reputation. Caleb frowned. I pulled out my phone. You said Callie found something, right? He nodded. I scrolled through my screen, my mind racing. If she found something worth hiding, it means it's worth exposing. Caleb's eyes widened. Mandy, I met his gaze. He's been hiding for 15 years, Caleb. Let's make sure he never gets to come back. The plan came together faster than I expected. James thought he had control, but he underestimated how much smarter we had gotten. While Caleb worked his old connections, I scoured every digital footprint Callie might have left behind. I found it in an old, private email account, a folder of files labeled only with the word insurance. It was everything. Bank records, blackmail schemes, evidence of corruption that ran so deep. It was a miracle James had stayed hidden for so long. It was enough to bury him. Permanently. 2 days later, the world knew James Holloway's name again. Not as a ghost, not as a legend, but as a criminal. Every file, every secret, every dirty deal he had ever made. It was all laid out in the open. By the time James realized what had happened, it was too late. The FBI was after him. His old allies were cutting ties. And just like that, James Holloway had nowhere left to hide. I got a call that night. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in 15 years, he was the one running. And I was the one who got to walk away. With Callie. With Caleb. And with the life that James Holloway could never take from me again. I stood outside the gas station, breathing in the cool night air. Caleb leaned against the car beside me, arms crossed. So, he muttered. That was satisfying. I smirked. Yeah, it was. He turned to me. You ever gonna forgive me? I thought about it. Then, finally, I sighed. Maybe. He chuckled. I'll take it. I glanced at Callie, sleeping in the back seat. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. I looked up at the night sky, exhaling slowly. James Holloway was gone, and we were still standing. And that, I decided, was the best revenge of all.